Now we will be starting our match. I'm going to introduce each player individually. Okay, so our first player is Raj Ousia, an educator living in the LA area who is a Jeopardy champion, a winner of $250,000 on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and a 3-time top 2 scorer at 3 consecutive National Quiz Bowl championships. Next, we've got David Ferris, who's a mathematician who is a member of national championship teams at all 3 levels, high school, undergrad, and grad school. This year, he won the Karnataka Quiz Association Championship in Bangalore on the Rest House Crescent Quizzers. Next, we've got Hidehiro Anto, an undergrad at UCLA and a member of the 3rd place Team California at the 2014 HSAPQ NASAT and top scorer at the 2015 NAQT ICT Division II. Next, we've got Charles Meads, the only player to win All-Star in Division II in 2 consecutive years while playing for UCLA, and led the University of Maryland, go Terps, to a 2008 national championship. And our next 2 contestants are also attendees at NIPS. We've got Sharad Vikram, who's a PhD candidate at UCSD and a veteran of Quiz Bowl teams at Torrey Pines and Berkeley, where he served as president. He's also the author of the Quiz Bowl database, the creator of much of the data that we use to train these algorithms. And finally, we've got James Bradbury, a research scientist at Salesforce, where he works on question answering, among many other things. As a quiz bowler, he played on top 15 teams at Thomas Jefferson High School, as well as Stanford. So this is probably one of the strongest teams we've had at these exhibition matches. So yeah, look forward to it. So the format of the game will be, we have 56 questions. We will pause after the 28th question for a score check. And in the case that the system and the players are tied at the end of 56 questions, which has happened before, we have 4 questions as a tiebreaker. So we're going to do a buzzer check now. Okay, great. So player 1 just buzzed in. That's fine.
Which one buzzed? Oh, it's up there.
He will call up.
Player 4. I am ready to.
Okay, so are we all set? All right, toss up 1. A poem in this collection claims that the real need of the speaker's heart is for Lady Macbeth, and opens, "It will never be the beauties that vignettes show." Another poem in this collection contrasts how large the world is by lamplight versus how small it is in the eyes of memory. Its introduction describes how ennui's eye is brimming with spontaneous tears and is addressed to the hypocrite reader.
Last floors do now.
Yes, that is correct, with terrible pronunciation. All right, toss up 2. A speech given in support of this policy claims that if cities are burned down, they will be rebuilt so long as farms are not burned as well. This policy was a primary goal of an offshoot of the Republican Party founded by Henry Teller. Proponents of this policy dubbed an act that outlawed it the crime of 73. An advocate of this policy lost the elections of 1896 and 1900.
Gold standard.
Sorry, Meg 5. That farmers were being crucified on a cross of gold. For 10 points, name this policy of using silver and gold to mint currency.
See you.
That is also incorrect, but it's very close.
I guess I take
The correct answer was bimetal.
Okay. Sure. And we
Okay,
can probably pick you up.
Question 3. A ruler of this dynasty was frightened by the sight of a chicken standing on a ceremonial vessel and was named Wu Ding. A god.
Shang Dynasty.
That is correct for 15 points. Okay, toss up 4. An extension of this framework concludes that a government cannot maintain a fixed exchange rate and autonomous monetary policy if money is allowed to cross borders. That extension of this framework is the Mundell-Fleming model. Within it,
ISLM model.
that is correct for 15 points.
Expand the acronym.
That is the Investment Saving and Liquidity Preference Money Supply. Thanks. Okay, toss up 5. The British ornithologist who wrote the first book titled A Dictionary of Birds had this surname. Yeah, that's player 1.
Bond.
That is -5. A scientist with this surname calculated the force needed to maintain a revolving object's trajectory while increasing its speed in his theorem of revolving orbits. And he also names a method for approximating roots of a function by repeated calculations. That scientist with this surname claimed that every action has an equal and opposite reaction in his third law of motion. 10 points give this surname of the British formulator of the theory of gravity, Sir Isaac. Yes, that is correct for 10 points. All right, toss up 6. The contemporary variety of this programming language is sometimes called Postgres. That is player 5. Yep, that is correct for power. Answering these questions is not a computer scientist. Toss up 7. A character created by this author recalls a time when he had to paint white, yellow, and green lines, and then had to paint the words eye protection area in preparation for a visit from Henry Ford. In a play by this writer, a man steals a work pass book from a corpse and assumes his identity. He wrote a drama in which 2 servants practice ballroom dancing and reminisce about... That is player 3?
Apple Fugard.
Yes, that is correct for 10 points. Okay, W.G. Cumberbatch argued that the effect of novelty was not accurately screened out during this study. A follow-up to it tested whether its results were consistent with vicarious reinforcement. A secondary finding of this study was that males are more likely to imitate same-sex models than females.
Bobo doll experiment.
That is correct for 10 points. The Bobo doll experiment. Question 9. This monarch agreed to give his vote for Holy Roman Emperor to Francis, the Duke of Lorraine, by the terms of the Treaty of Dresden. He ordered the construction of the Sanssouci Palace, where he often separated... Player 3?
Frederick the Great.
Yep, that is power. 15 points. A character in this play has his fortune told by drawing a strip of paper from a helmet, choosing a symbol of death that has a black cross drawn on it. In this play, a cook is unmasked as being a man named Peter Piper by a prostitute.
Mother courage in her children.
That is 15 points. Okay. In a speech, this leader claimed that the yokes of ignorance, tyranny, and vice were all equally dangerous, and that people of mixed descent differed from the Romans because they lacked a common background.
Simon Bolivar.
That is 15 points. All right. In a book based on this novel, Arabella accepts the proposal of her cousin Glanville after throwing herself into the Thames to escape from some attackers.
Don Quixote.
That is 15 points. A poem included in this book begins, "Stars concealed by black clouds can shed no light." A character in this book is first seen wearing a robe embroidered with a staircase in the letters pi and theta. A translation...
The Consolation of Philosophy.
That is 15 points again. The artist of this painting included his signature on a plaque on a tub at its extreme right. This was the first painting commissioned for the Chamber of Alabaster.
The Feast of the Gods.
That is 15 points. Well, crushing. This scientist included a description of a fly's eye in a book that coined the biological definition of the word cell and used illustrations to show the power of the microscope. That's player 6. Yep, that's 15 points for the humans. Question 16. These formations are more likely to develop in areas with a specific yield of higher than 15 or 20%. An equation central to the study of these formations yields the conclusion that velocity is equal to p over theta, where theta is the porosity. That equation is Darcy's law. These formations can be classified as being confined or unconfined. Examples,
Aquifer.
that is correct, aquifer for 10 points. Okay, this company has been responsible for driving down the cost of the Ariane 5 project, and its current president and COO is Gwynne Shotwell. This company, that's player 6. Yep, that is 15 points. A central cavalry charge during this battle was conducted by the Aturka Hussars and targeted a feature nicknamed the Death Redoubt. At this battle, an unsuccessful assault on the village of Utitsa was staged by Joseph Poniatowski.
Battle of Borodino.
The Battle of Borodino is correct for 10 points. A painting by John Blake White shows a story whereby this man caused a British officer to switch sides by offering him a meal during a negotiation.
Francis Marion.
That is 15 points. The protagonist of a story by this author decides that he wants to be a poet as his New Year's resolution, so he writes 2 quatrains about an egg. That story is titled after the rubaiyat of his recurring character Reginald. He created a character who's trying to become acquainted with the Sappleton family. The line,
Saki.
yes, that is correct for 10 points. Okay, toss up 21. 2 members of this family led the charge to distribute white feathers to civilians who did not enlist in World War I. A member of this family was a prominent supporter of Ethiopian independence in the UK and later moved to that country at the invitation of Haile Selassie. The followers of a member of this family caused the passage of the Cat and Mouse Act by staging hunger strikes.
Pankhurst.
Pankhurst is correct for 10 points. Okay. An oft-used set of 2 examples of this law involve graphite, diamond, and the process of steam reforming. A parameter of a lattice can be calculated using an application of this law in the
Hess's Law.
Hess's law for 15 points. An entry in this game series introduced the cloud-dwelling race of the Butios. A mod for this game series was developed by Gabriel Trovato, who took the pseudonym Rye. Strategies in its most... That's player 4. Yep, that's 15 points for the humans. Okay, early versions of these objects popular in Britain were called the Ariel and the Ordinary. Marcel Duchamp's first ready-made used a part from this type of object, which was placed upon a stool. That is player 5. That is -5. The first prototype of these objects were called velocipedes, and before designing the first airplane, the Wright brothers owned a repair shop for these objects. The penny farthing was a nickname for an example of this type of object that featured a very large front wheel. For 10 points, name these vehicles with pedals, gears, and 2 wheels.
Bicycle.
Yep, that's 10 points. 7 unnamed states were created in this country as part of its new September 2015 Constitution. Also in
Nepal.
That's 15 points. Okay, configurations of these entities are changed or switched in proton tunneling. The primary difference between smart rubber and normal rubber is that smart rubber only makes use of these entities and not similar counterparts. Nylon 6,
Hydrogen bond.
that's 10 points. Okay, 2 questions until the half. The owner of this team is a Thai retail magnate who made his fortune in the duty-free shopping business. Its coach was nicknamed the Tinkerer for constantly altering his lineup. A statue of Richard III was decorated with the flag of this team because the king's body was interred in a cathedral near where it plays its home games. Led by Jamie Vardy, this team is also known as the Foxes.
Leicester City?
Yep, that's correct for 10 points. And the last question before score check. John Cox, Stephen Ross, and Mark Rubenstein developed a model to evaluate the cost of these entities that is based on the binomial theory. Robert Options is correct for 15 points. And that's halftime. $80 for the humans. A passage on this activity notes that voting turnout in the 1994 elections was 25% lower than turnout for this. Groups formed for this activity are contrasted with those that form tertiary associations. A book titled for this activity discusses the decline of social capital in... Yes.
Bowling.
Yes, that is 10 points. In this country, an artist placed a horse in front of a pillar in the print Night Shining White. An artwork from this...
Japan.
That is -5. An artwork from this country was accompanied by a monograph that describes a wall of gold and features the Rainbow Bridge in its center. Ink wash painting was pioneered in this country, and it was the origin of the bird and flower paintings. A print from this country depicts a riverside during a spring festival. A ruler from here was buried along a terracotta army for 10 points, named this country where porcelain was produced during the Ming Dynasty. Yep. Yes, that is 10 points. All right, toss up 31. This actor twice portrayed a man who demands a 15,000-pound bribe to conceal his homosexual affair with a deceased person, leading to his sons stuffing him in their father's coffin. A character played by this actor is responsible for designing the Sentinels and is named Boulevard Trask. In a current role, he plays a man who shoots his father with a crossbow while in a bathroom. That is player 5. Yes, that is 10 points. 3 in a row for the humans. In a story from this mid-system, a god was forced to lead a band of dwarfs in combat after a king's daughter had fallen in love with him while he was disguised as an insane vegetable seller. In this mid-system, the motion of the moon was caused when it was slapped by a rabbit, and mankind was... That is player 4.
Aztec?
Yes, that is 15 points. A condition caused by an example of this entity can be diagnosed by the presence of 14-3-3 protein in the cerebrospinal fluid. The replication of these entities can be explained by the heterodimer model, though it is difficult to understand that replication without either extreme reaction rates or the formation of amyloids. Stanley Prion is correct for 10 points. A character in this play repeatedly expresses disdain for genetic engineering because it will get rid of the spontaneity of life. That character...
I was afraid of Virginia Woolf.
That is 15 points. In this religion, each person's primordial spirit is comprised of main and assistant parts, and it teaches that what differentiates humans and animals is sentimentality. Its 3 core principles are truth, compassion, and forbearance. The cosmic...
Falun Gong.
That is correct for 10 points. 15 points. A people who live in this country use their word for begin, Sambuca, to name a founding first son and wife. The southern Ndebele people live in this country where the trust... That's player 1.
Zimbabwe?
That is -5. The Trust Feed Massacre posed a threat to its first free elections. In this country, the Inkatha Freedom Party was founded by Mangosuthu Buthelezi, a defense force named after it fought a namesake border war with its northwestern neighbor in the 1970s and 80s. For 10 points, name this country where the ANC political party is still active and where it once fought against apartheid.
South Africa.
That's 10 points. All right, toss up 37. The duet Vedros Sempre la Pace is the climax of a piece this composer wrote for the wedding of a French king, La Gloria y Emilio. The work of this...
Antonio Vivaldi.
That is 15 points. This director oversaw a scene in which a man chooses a replacement for a deceased man when a flipped coin lands on its side next to a third party's name. In a movie directed by this man, a woman succeeds in flagging down a car to hitchhike by showing the driver her leg. He directed a movie in which a senator filibusters a dam bill. Player 4?
Capra.
Yes, that is 10 points. At this battle, a commander on the winning side transferred his command to the Astoria after abandoning his flagship. Prior to this clash, evidence that the code of the losing side had been cracked. That's player 4.
Trafalgar.
That is -5. Was established by a falsified story about a failing water system. A planned invasion of the Aleutian Islands actually began the day before this battle started. The Yorktown was sunk by a submarine at its end. For 10 points, name this World War II battle where the Japanese lost 4 aircraft carriers in an attempt to take the namesake Pacific Island.
Battle of Midway.
That's 10 points. A man of this name was the Duke of Aosta for much of the second half of the 19th century and was allowed to return to Turin per the terms of the Congress of Vienna. Player 4.
Napoleon.
That is -5. The forces of a monarch of this name won the Battle of Castelfiardo against the papacy, and that king met with Napoleon III at Plombières. That monarch of this name endorsed the Expedition of the Thousand and was advised by Count Cavour. For 10 points, give this name of the first king of a unified Italy.
Victor Emmanuel.
That is 10 points. This author's wife wrote about Sister Miriam being found dead in the ivory tower in her novel Quiet as a Nun, her first book to feature Jemima Shore. A play by this author includes a leaky roof which drips into a bucket, prompting a visitor to ask what happens when the bucket fills up. Antonia Fraser was...
Harold Pinter.
That is 10 points. This scientist names a constant that is equal to Loschmidt's constant times R.
Andio Avogadro.
That is 15 points. Okay. Two concepts in this doctrine were characterized as being divisible and indivisible. This doctrine was defended in a letter to Elizabeth of Bohemia that claimed it was facilitated by the pineal gland. A version of this stance was attacked by Gilbert Ryle as the ghost in the... It's player 3.
Dualism.
That is 15 points. In an episode of this television show, Henry Bemis shortchanges a customer because he's too busy reading a copy of David Copperfield. In a different episode of this series, Janet Tyler undergoes a series of 11 cosmetic surgeries. A character claims that's not fair at all, after breaking his glasses at the end of the episode. Yes, player 1.
Twilight Zone.
Yes, that is 10 points. This man sometimes names the residue theorem. A distribution usually... That is player 2.
Cauchy.
That is 15 points. A painter from this country had his painting of a dying soldier barred from an art show here, along with his painting depicting a pyramid of skulls. An artist...
Russia.
That's 15 points. At the end of this story, its title character concludes that the real world is imaginary and prepares for his inevitable funeral. This story's protagonist meets a woman who demands 50 guilders as a dowry, which he obtains by taking up a collection amongst the townspeople of Franpol. An evil spirit...
Gimple the Fool.
Gimple the Fool for 10 points. The Ni-Ilah prayer is only said during the conclusion of this holiday. In a service during this holiday, a priest randomly selects one of 2 goats to be... That's player 6. That's 15 points. As part of this initiative, a high-speed rail line called the Metroliner was built between New York and Washington by the newly formed Department of Transportation. This initiative led to the creation of community action agencies in low-income areas, and it also included the development of the Office of Economic Opportunity as part of its war on poverty. That is player 6. That is 10 points. Okay, we're at toss-up 50, so 6 questions left. Sorry, 7. A character created by this author is helped by a Chinese doctor during a sea voyage to California and later disguises herself as a homosexual boy while accompanying a troupe of prostitutes managed by Joe Bonecrusher. A father...
Isabel Allende.
That is 15 points. Frank Crowninshield claimed that the title of this piece of artwork, taken alone, was virtually meaningless. A version of this work of art was owned by Edward Steichen, who took several photographs of it that were published as prints of 4 snapshots on one page. This artwork...
Bird in space.
Bird in space for 15 points. A dispute arose among this group of people because only one of them possessed a delicious honey. A member of this group left a tent in search of a missing necklace, and when she was returned to camp by a nomad, a rumor started that she was having an affair with her rescuer. A woman who lost her...
Muhammad's wives.
That is 10 points. Hamid's wives. This novel relates the story of a tortoise that convinced the birds to give it feathers so it could fly to the heavens and steal the birds' best food and wine. A character in this...
Things fall apart.
That is 15 points. The fundamental epistle was written by the founder of this religion, which believes in 3 different waves of creation. A word translating as platform, bima, names...
Judaism.
Yes, for 15 points. Okay, 2 questions left. The right side of a painting by this artist depicts the late former wife, the current wife, and the daughter of the Burgermeister of Basel. That painting by...
Hans Holbein the Younger.
That is 15 points as well. And the final question. Though Great Britain owed this country millions of pounds for grain exports it made during World War II, it was able to withhold payments by the terms of the Roca-Runciman Treaty. That is player 4.
Argentina.
That is 15 points. And that is the game. So next we have a panel